Really?
It's wallpaper.
Oh.
Oh, yeah. They have like Windows boot screen for that.
I should start that since it takes 8.5 hours to start. And I should update it for today instead of last month.
And then they have another boot screen, which is a Windows XP pirated edition. That's a right to copy and stuff like that.
So, just because, the time says it and we're not really starting a meeting, but I just was tickled by the fact that even when it's a remote application, like a remote, because like I'm running the actual management is running on that computer, but it's X, and it still shows up in your notification area. I think that's just cool. I know, I'm just going on and on about nothing.
So here's a topic. Here's a topic for the news section. Did anybody notice that the scurriest rumors about ATI drivers getting open source?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Well, I mean, since Intel did it, and I was shocked because everyone saw that today, right? Where recently Intel open sourced their, I can't spell August.
The graphics drivers?
They for their brand new chipset, they open sourced the drivers. And the weird part about it was, guess who was announcing it? The one who Keith Packard. So apparently it's hire Keith Packard to work for your giant corporation, and you'll have great drivers.
Well, now there's a surprise.
No, but that's what NVIDIA did when they released their Linux drivers. They released the first crap ones, and then they hired Keith.
Yeah.
And then they got to where they are now, and apparently Keith has moved on.
Well, it's hard to say who would hire, who would be better to hire.
So what network is the IRC thing? And all that stuff? Freenode?
Yeah. Do you have people trying to get in?
And the group is pound?
SGVLUG. Well, I haven't seen in a while. So if anyone is Kerry when they come in,
I don't know what IRC. I have something.
I'm just saying I don't know what he looks like. So there's somebody I didn't recognize coming in.
Rockets, yeah. So what server do we have today?
Yeah, Mike, when I called Kerry, he said the president sent me 200, and the message said, the system is paging Kerry at this moment, and it was dialing all the phone.
So your password is in there?
No. Okay.
It's the first time I've sent this in.
No, we're going to have a
What this guy has done is done something
for
for
IRC.
school and left about 40 minutes. And he kind of writes them up and shows him what he's going to do with it.
How do you spell asterisk?
It's like asterisk.
It's interesting.
I'm just going to go to our website.
Asterisk.
When people sound out things, it doesn't help me spell.
Okay, get them back.
This is why I can't spell.
Biggest way to
Just remember Shakespeare couldn't read them.
I can spell the thing the same way. It's the important part of the program.
The important part is understanding.
Well, teachers aren't averse to work with, the idea is you just keep piling on more and more. Definitely.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
So what it comes down to, the school day is really slow.
Oh yeah.
4 or 5 seconds
And they
delay.
never specify what you do.
Yes, because the people actually at the meeting are the ones that
Teacher heard me say that.
Yeah.
Wait.
But everybody drops. We need to reform, put that back in. Everybody drops to the phone.
Right.
So you just.
Okay, so
Look at that, walking
Watch yourself move.
It's thought through.
That's too much.
It isn't,
Don't do that all day long. Wait, make an infinite tongue. Oh, look, I'm coming back.
Or something that's favorable.
Hey, there you are.
And say, okay, well, that worked a little bit.
Einstein was
Yeah, they'll look
Oh,
at
yeah.
the meeting,
You're saying that room? All I have is widescreen.
but they'll ignore all the stuff that contract.
Right.
And that was better. Always do.
Okay.
I forgot we said this, but somebody said probably
No, I'm sure my laptop will crash or someone is going to hack it because I'm saying it out loud on the screen.
Quickly!
Oh no, I'm not running a firewall. No. I turned it off. Don't kill my laptop.
You say, oh, that didn't work, we'll try something new.
What is hardware specs on the laptop?
One of the features I need.
Yeah,
I've talked about 30 years. And keep coming around the term change.
right. Yeah, some,
It's like, oh,
some,
1.33 gigahertz core duo, like a gig around.
very good coordinated version, all that, new terminology.
Good? Yeah, that's a 10.
What a concept.
It's such a good one. I think it does a good job. It's got speed. It's really hot if you go over an area when you're turning at full speed. I was standing over there and I started sweating. Well, do this for 2
When I
months.
went to Sangerville High School,
Just go to the store, the examples will freak out.
It's that whole, whatever it's called.
That's a piece of plastic that broke off of one.
Yeah. They keep printing with that.
I heard some audio coming out of it.
That's pretty cool.
I don't know.
Hi, I'm Kerry.
That's Michael, our Sandy's the current moderator, I'm the previous moderator.
How you doing? Nice to meet you. This is Mitch.
Hey, Mitch. Just so I check because I'm like,
I substituted.
we are going to take this machine, so you don't have a problem with that, right?
kindergarten all the way.
Since I just got it working 3.5 seconds ago.
And almost every laptop in the room is already connected to it.
Yeah, which is defeating the purpose of being in the room.
Okay, you guys are going to seriously geek out on this. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
I'm not offended.
Okay, best not to tell him that the bad boys in the back of the room are actually talking about IRC.
I've got IRC on my BlackBerry, so
Recording is weird though.
that's how we met.
Yeah, I like, the bit rate's really turned down. It's only like 12.5 frames per second too.
Same Mitchell guy from online.
Mitchell OC?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't put the two together.
Oh,
Well, there's a bunch of people that normally show up that aren't here
Yeah.
yet, but you guys have, that's the question I'm supposed to ask. I didn't ask. How long did you want to go for?
10?
Hours?
No, till 10.
Okay. All right. You don't like just have an hour. Guys, the volume of the stream in the meeting is just annoying. I'm sure it's a shotgun and the mic isn't going to sound great.
Oh, am I it or?
No, I'm going to talk for a couple minutes.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to put some phones out here and take a look at it.
So, yeah, it's August. This is a meeting. You guys are here. Something I normally say. Hearing myself 4 seconds later is really annoying. Next time I'll write a firewall rule that doesn't allow anyone to connect from inside the room.
I turned the audio down high.
You did, but he's having fun with
Can you tell how many people are connected to
What?
Can you tell how many people not here are connected?
Well, if I knew how many people in here
I don't think anybody else
like
can do this. I just told them that.
There's 3 people connected right now, and yeah,
Dustin,
I see 3 people.
Yeah, do
in the
it.
room.
Yeah.
But there was a peak of 7.
Wireless strategy.
But that includes me.
Spamming on freedom.
I know. And
Check out this one live.
I've got
in the
2 minutes worth of balance. Let me
That's
hook
what
up.
we're gonna do.
Might as well.
Yeah, go ahead.
Kerry likes the attention.
I love how long he's talking about it, and then you come in and say, and then he's ranting after he talks about the stream. All right, I'm gonna stop talking about IRC in the meeting.
Oh, what's up, guys?
Everybody want free stuff?
He's got free
There's
stuff.
like a box of like novel discs and.
Oh, I was thinking.
Oh, sure.
I was thinking of like vacations.
Everyone come get Linspire books. And
I don't know. I know most people don't need it. But it's like if you
they'll
go
sell
something.
something at some point. Yeah, if you're shy. Or we can pass them out, but. Door. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, we're gonna talk about the setup. So I don't know how to pronounce it because I can't pronounce anything I've only ever read on the internet. Another one of my versions.
I'm not the only one.
Those are the guys that basically it's all based on the GStreamer framework, and it's streaming OGFior and OGVorbis, OG streams. Takes a bit of actual horsepower, like a 2.0 Athlon XP 2400 couldn't do it reliably, at least. It was kind of jittery. But that, like, 4Duo laptop is doing it. So they also have a Java applet, so you can play this stream without actually having to install a video client on your system. As long as you have Java running on your system, you could just install the. You could just have go to a website, load the applet, play the stream, which is pretty cool.
Flash video.
I know it's all about Flash video, but Flash video is actually not really anything. It's actually just a container format for like MP4 or something. And it uses the systems decoder to actually do it. I think, but I'm not sure. Someone please let him in. And that's it. There's a management interface for it with a wizard to let you choose how you would like it to be. Or if you wanted to test it, you can do TV capture cards or web cameras or DV. You can choose a lot of different configurations for how you want to configure that. And just on a side note, because I said this 3 times already, so I must be excited about it. But with the GNOME here, it has a little smiley face means it's working, and it puts it in the notification area, which is kind of cool, I think. Especially since this application is actually running on a different computer than the one you're looking at. But that's what X is for, right? Everyone forgets that. It pisses me off. Is there any other news anyone wanted to talk about, or anything cool?
Anyone want to help evangelize Linux and open source and stuff?
Oh, I got shirts.
Yeah. At the DevSig, right as we were about to head on over to the barbecue, this guy walked up and he's looking for people to help teach Linux to the community in the area. I got a bunch of his flyers. If anybody wants to look into that to help this guy, come by and grab them.
And I've got a bunch of hardware that I brought over. And these gentlemen were kind enough to show me where you were located. And it's price is right, it's free. I've got a couple of 30 gig tape backups and their SCSI cards. Power supplies. So if anybody's interested, well, just come take a look.
Cool. People will, I'm sure. It's got the exact right price. Yeah. Jeff didn't show up, so I guess he won't talk about whatever he's talking about. Great.
I brought some stuff.
More free stuff.
Give away, more free stuff. There's memory and hard disk and a few cables and more memory, cords, various cords. Good power supply. I think it's 350 watts.
Cool.
Anyway.
Put it on the table.
Alright.
There's more free stuff over there. If you just got here, there's some Linspire books / discs and some Novell something. That's free stuff, actually. That forgetting his name.
Moonjaw.
Oh, I'm never gonna remember that. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm doing horribly up here today.
Is there a sign sheet?
No.
Didn't make one this time, sorry.
Kerry.
Is it worth mentioning the ATI rumors? It's pure spurious rumors. That's what makes it fun.
Oh, I guess I hadn't actually heard it before you mentioned it.
Yeah. Well, I suppose everybody knows that AMD bought ATI. So the latest rumor was could have been predicted, 2 seconds after. But the latest rumor is that AMD might just open source the ATI drivers, which is pretty significant for us since we don't actually have any 3D open source drivers that matter. For cards you can actually still buy.
Actually,
Except for the Intel.
The Intel drivers are.
Yeah.
But they're not known for that being super 3D.
They're not, but were those the ones that they put in laptop? I mean, were those laptop drivers?
All of their drivers up to date to this date are actually GPL.
Well, the significant-
and in the DRI, they're in the dir.sourceforge tree.
Right. Well, see, the significance of that is that they actually sell more than anybody else. They're just low end ones.
Yeah. But they're apparently Intel's brand new, like 965 chipsets. Their brand new chipset that's like maybe not really in the real world yet has an open source driver. And that has all the fancy programmable Vortex, whatever, super magic features in it that I don't really understand because, yeah, I never had to deal with that kind of intense 3D stuff. Anyways, those are supposedly open source as of today, even though they're not production quality drivers. Literally, they open source them, not being production quality. But
right. Which does suggest that maybe XGL isn't, the path to hell.
Well, the thing is, XGL isn't that the one? One of the technologies. Oh no, it's the other one. It's because there's two 3D desktop technologies, right? So there's XGL and there's the other one.
Yeah.
And the other one actually won't run on anything closed source because they require some features.
Well, it's not XGL. Then.
Yeah. XGL will only run on the closed source drivers, and then the other one, which is like I forget. It's the one that's made it into Fedora or was going to be in Fedora.
It was the one that Red Hat was pushing.
Red Hat was pushing. Will actually not require some features that the proprietary drivers don't actually provide right now. So,
how could that have happened? The feature is, are you open source? Yes. Okay, I'll run.
No, that's not it. Actually, they're actually using a specific feature that the open source drivers provide. Who knows? But yeah, like you said, it's a good thing Intel has decided that they sell a lot of hardware and it's not secret sauce.
Well, the truth is, yeah, I mean, they actually sell more than anybody else. So there is the issue of, will you ever be able to run Linux? After if everybody if we go to XGL, so it's kind of nice to be able to actually install. And to not have to install your own graphics drivers.
Well, yeah, I have that problem with that laptop, which is it has GPL drivers, but they're too new to be in actually any place where you get a binary as a when Kerry is ready, I will stop this talk rambling up here, by the way. When you're ready.
Oh, I was just letting you go. So.
Okay. Yeah, that's why I'm making that clear.
Do we, what's the link for people to view this?
This, it's stream.sgvlug.org.
Sure, Mike.
Oh, I could do that. Yeah.
So is this still beta, Mike, or are we gonna put this on the website? That you can do this if you can't attend?
It's beta at the moment because I was trying to use a different computer like the day before last, and it just wasn't working. And so I was like, I'd given up, and then I'm like, oh wait, I have this Core Duo laptop here that happens to have built-in FireWire. I wonder if I should try plugging it into that. And so I actually came over here a little earlier than I normally do and plugged it in, and lo and behold, it worked.
Yeah.
So
you might also mention the IRC channel.
oh yeah, SGVLUG does have an IRC channel. It's pound SGVLUG on Freenode.
Which some of us have actually started monitoring just for the heck of it. So.
Is it a new thing, or how new is it?
Less than maybe a month. I don't know. Sorry.
When did you make it?
Yeah, we're gonna have a Java applet pretty soon, so people could go there at work or something.
If you don't have an IRC.
You can install
So right. Now the reason for mentioning both of those at the same time is notice the combined effect. No one ever has to come again. You sit at home, watch the streaming video, and discuss it on IRC.
Except I know I'm not going to show up and talk in a room of an empty room. I don't know how many speakers.
We got it right the first time.
What do you want to show? You want me to room?
I know. Stop doing that.
Now, if only David Lawyer would actually pay for broadband, he could actually attend the meeting.
Kerry Garrison, right?
Yep.
He's going to talk about voice over IP.
Come up. Oh, wait. Till later.
There's some clipping on that.
Yeah, there is. What resolution should this be in? Is this 1024 or?
Yeah, that's why I went mine in, so it works there.
How's that? There we go. How many people have heard of Asterisk? Used it? Wow, okay. IP PBXs in general, open switch, free switch, so SIPX, there's a number of them out there. We started a couple years ago playing around with Asterisk when a friend showed it to me and said, oh, you gotta check this out, this is really cool. And so I started playing around with it, used it in my own business. We have an IT consulting firm down in Irvine, Tech Data Pros, and what we found is we were able to cut down our cell phone bill dramatically because we were able to install soft phones on our laptops so that wherever we went, we had an extension going back to the PBX that was in the office. And the PBX was simply built on an old, Pentium 3 400 at the time. And it was very simple to get up and running and play with and do some really cool things. And then I was at Best Buy one day and they found this $12 cordless phone with a $12 rebate. Cool. Hooked up to a little adapter, and that's what I carried around. And if I was going to be at a client's office for a couple hours, I would just plug that in. And they'd come by and they'd see the phone ring, and they're like, how is your phone ringing here? I'm like, well, and I would explain it. And finally we started actually selling systems based on Asterisk. And we've done pretty good. We've got, I've lost track of how many actual jobs we've done, but we've done jobs for a system for Miramax Films. We're doing 66 Carl's Jr.'s next month. Anything from 2 stations to 92 is our range right now. So it's a very simple system to kind of deal with and work with and do some different things. So we're going to kind of go from the basics up to actual seeing some of the components and look at some different websites that we can talk about. So an IP PBX system, most of them are Linux-based today. Name brand ones include FreePBX NBX system, if anyone's seen that. It's kind of a nice little box, a web interface. It's really easy to get up and running. The phones are business quality phones, and it's a good system, and they base that on Linux with their own switch software in it. Asterisk from Digium is probably the fastest growing open source PBX out there. Started from kind of a dream to have a software-based phone system, and it's evolved into an extremely powerful product these days. For the most part, Asterisk by itself is driven by config files, and they don't have their own web interface, but there's a number of them out there from third-party people that have been put on. We'll look at one of those in particular later. SIPX from SIP Foundry, one of the second guys out there, they're shipped with a full web interface on it. Not quite as powerful as Asterisk because it's kind of locked down into their interface right now, but it's growing very quickly. And FreeSwitch is another one which is kind of got a nice grassroots movement going right now. And any new technology that is coming out, like Jabber integration or the Google Jingle stuff and XMPP and all number of new things that are coming out in this whole realm of voice over IP, they're really moving forward on quickly. So I look to see FreeSwitch as being a very popular product over the next year or so in this whole IP PBX space. If you guys have any questions, just ask, throw your hands up, whatever, get up and dance, and just let me know. So otherwise, I'm just going to ramble and ramble and ramble forever. But if you have a specific question on something, just let me know. An IP PBX system is different from a traditional system in that there's no dedicated hardware per se. We run these on Pentium class machines, Xeon processors, just your typical Dell that you can buy. Throw Linux on it and install the software, and you can get these up and running. And they are full-blown phone systems, extensions, voicemail, transfers, parking, music on hold, remote extensions. You have a variety of phones. These are just a few of the phones that are available. There's tons of phones, name brands like Polycom, Cisco. This is the Linksys phone. These two are from Grandstream, the GXP 2000 and the brand new BT 200. So you have a whole range from $85 to $150 to $700 for the new Cisco color touchscreen whiz-bang, awesome, cool phone. Polycoms are really good in about the $200 price range. So you have some really, really good phones out there that are business class stuff. You take a look at these, and you're like, it's kind of cheesy feeling. They're really lightweight. Maybe okay in your house, but would you really want to run a business on a phone that this thing is so light, it just doesn't have the right feel. When you start moving up, and this has a nice heft to it, it's got a good display, it's a much better quality phone. So as you move up in scale, the quality definitely goes up. And soft phones, like I've already mentioned, that's just a software phone running on your laptop or a desktop machine. There's a variety of those to choose from. A lot of them are free. There's a few of them that are in the $30 range, $40 range that have video and conference stuff built in and all kinds of additional features, but a basic one that you can get up and running, you can get those for free. Conferences, a lot of companies have to use outside conference systems. You guys seem old enough to remember the Lions teleconferencing systems and all that stuff. And you can do that right in the same PBX system. Set up a complete conference call system, unlimited number of users just based on how many calls are coming in and how much processor you have to deal with. And voicemail you can have sent directly to your email address. So you kind of have that beginning stages of the integrated messaging components that people are really excited about. So you roll all this together and you can actually offer a phone system that rivals traditional systems such as Strata, Panasonic, Toshiba for a price point that is next to nothing in comparison. So that's why these things are really taking off great, especially in the small business market where they go in and they want to talk to Toshiba for a 20-station install, and it's 20 grand, and it's $1,000 a seat. And it gets really expensive real quick, and you don't have half the features that you have in these types of systems. Where we can go in and sell a system for a third of that with more features. It's a no-brainer. But then as you move upscale, the gap becomes even more. When we're talking about doing systems with 100, 200 stations, the price point can be $30,000, $40,000 in savings to a company. So it makes a lot of sense for a company to look at IP-based PBX systems. As I just mentioned, we have name brand phones, Cisco, Linksys, Polycom. They work off standard protocols, which is SIP, and their business quality. This is the Linksys phone that I've got up here. 4 call appearances, all the hold functions, conferencing, voicemail, soft keys that change based on what's being displayed and what mode you're in. So these are really good phones. Some of them have dual Ethernet ports. You come out of the wall, into the phone, out of the phone, into the computer, so you're not eating up another network jack. So you can install these into pre-wired situations where you may not have the ability to add another jack.
Will the Asterisk system integrate into a power over Ethernet system for the telephones?
The Asterisk does not care about the switches. So absolutely does not care. And if we look at the 3 phones here, 2 of these support power over Ethernet, 1 doesn't. So it's a function of the phone itself, the device, not Asterisk. It doesn't care. So there's, and actually I was going to get on that, like this particular phone, you can see it has the 2 Ethernet jacks, 1 in and 1 out, and this will do power over Ethernet. So there's no configuration change within Asterisk. It doesn't know the difference whether it's power over Ethernet or not. All it cares about is whether you're using the SIP protocol on a phone that properly implements that and it can talk to it. So in reality, there's probably about a dozen companies out there manufacturing phones, and on average they've got 4 or 5 models apiece. So there's somewhere around 60 different phones you can choose from today. So you got a wide variety. Although when it really boils down to it, in a business environment, you're going to narrow that down to about 3 or 4 phones really quickly. When you're talking about your home, now you've got a whole world of choices. This Grandstream GXP 2000 was an extremely popular phone. This was a price point of about $85 for, okay, is that better? Multiple call appearances, all these programmable keys. The problem is, we've installed about 200 of these and every one of them has been sent back. They just, in a business environment, it's just not a very good phone. The speakerphone is horrible. But the price point's good. So if you're playing around, you're experimenting, you're building a little lab so you can start playing around with these types of systems, it's a decent phone because it has all the features. Backlit display. So, I mean, I keep this one on my desk, so it's great at home, but in my office, I have a much better phone. And then at the low end, these are, in the $70 range, $80 range as well. This one is brand new, this just came out. These just started shipping, the BT200. Sound quality-wise, it's much better than that older GXP. But, the display doesn't flip up and the backlight doesn't stay on all the times. There's no multiple call appearances on here. So you really get what you pay for in phones. And in a business environment where they're used to a legacy phone system, those phones are $150, $250 a piece. So to switch them over to IP phones at $150 to $200, there's no sticker shock there. That's what they're used to paying for those. So it works out pretty well. Do you have a question? Or were you laughing at someone in IRC? Oh. Okay, so Asterisk is the core of my business. This is the one that we sell. We don't sell because it's open source. We consult and we do the installs and configuration. But this is a very short list of the features. Automated attendant, so someone calls in, you get the voice menu, thank you for calling so-and-so. Yeah?
Is anybody really having no trouble reading that?
No, probably not. I'm sure everybody is probably. Is that better?
That's better.
Okay.
It was a stream.
Do I need to stand in the light so that people on the net can see me? So you can read that better now?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I can work in the dark, so that's cool. Again, this is a very, very short list of the features. There's actually about twice, if not 3 times more than this within Asterisk. From the automated attendant, which is your voice menu when you call in, thank you for calling the company, press 1 for sales, 2 for billing, 3 for support. Line transferability, call detail records, so you can see all the information about who's called and who's calling out. You can see what your people are doing. Call parking, call queuing. I mean, call queuing is relatively new in the PBX world on any type of system. I mean, we first saw this, 10 years ago at, big companies like Microsoft, where it say you are, caller number 8 million, and their estimated hold time is 3 days. Well, we can do that within Asterisk. It's a very simple function. Transferring calls, call waiting, caller ID, so we get all the caller ID information coming in. Conference bridging, dial by name, so as you put in people's names within the config files, when someone hits pound to go to the company directory, they can dial by the name and it finds it within the system. There's no extra programming involved to make that happen. The IVR, interactive voice response, that's again that press 1 for sales, 2 for billing, and it directs that to either another menu or to a call queue or a ring group and things like that. Local and remote call agents, music on hold, overhead paging. We can do paging via a sound card in the system, put it out through the console port on there, or we can hook up a phone as a remote extension with auto answer. So there's a number of different ways to do paging. If another phone is ringing, you can use remote call pickup to answer another phone that's ringing somewhere else. Roaming extensions, that is one of the big selling points of IP PBX systems. I can program this phone with the IP of the PBX system back in the office, and I can plug it in anywhere on the internet, and I've got dial tone. That's fantastic. I mean, people love that. People want to work at home. They want a remote office. You have a branch office that doesn't really warrant having its own phone system. Well, you put the main phone system someplace, and you put phones out on the net somewhere. And as long as there's decent QoS, you really shouldn't have any issue with that working. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to roll out to 66 Carl's Jr.'s beginning in about 2 weeks. There's only one Asterisk server, but there's 66 locations. So all the phones are going out to the locations, all tied in over the VPN network back to the office. Yes, go ahead.
Does music on hold include recorded information for the caller?
That wasn't me.
No, it wasn't.
That was me.
Projector.
The music on hold works off MP3 files, so you can record them and upload them to the system and put them in the music on hold queue, and it'll play them in that type of order.
So it could be the items on sale today.
Absolutely. That's a very popular feature. ehobbies.com, big online hobby store, kind of did this partnership with Amazon. Their phone volume just went absolutely through the roof a week before Thanksgiving. And we put that system in there the day before Thanksgiving, knowing the day after Thanksgiving is the busiest day of the year. So it was a little scary trying to throw a system like that together. But what they did is during that music on hold, they say, if you visit our website now, use this code and get free shipping. So it, all of a sudden, their call volume dropped dramatically. And funny, their web orders went up. So you can do things like that to get people off the phone lines and onto an internet site, or or tell them about a special, or different thing. Maybe even give, if it's a tech support line, give the current network status or the top 5 tips on how to solve a problem, things like that. I mean, we hear that whenever we call Cox or AT&T, network outage in Southern California right now. So yeah, it's totally easy to do. In fact, you could actually set it up to where someone has a simple extension that they dial to do that recording, and it just drops it into the flow. So it's very flexible in that way. I mean, remember, this is just software. So anything that you can imagine doing in software, whether it be a CGI script, a Perl script, a PHP script, a Python or TCL or Ruby or you name it, can drive this system. It's just script-based. So you can get really complicated real easy or not. It really depends on what you really want to do with it. So it's flexible enough to give you that kind of power that you can really customize a situation. So am I like dead in the water here?
It overheats.
Ah, okay.
It's Caltech.
It overheats.
Yeah.
Do we need to get like a Caltech kind of person over here to fix that?
They aren't
I
very
mean,
good.
I passed a rocket lab on the way over here. Thank you for that.
Explains the rocket.
Different guys.
They're very specialized. They
These guys are still learning, those guys are supposed to know.
A little super cool.
Wait. You want applications or theory?
Oh, that's true. That's true. And then there's support. So
Well, this is a high energy building, so all the high energy theorists actually are in this building. 4th floor, I think.
There we go. Okay, we're back up again.
That's why I get so hot.
Supervised transfer, text to speech. For the most part, Festival is the kind of the default text to speech engine that's installed. Although you can use things like Flight and a few others. There's some commercial ones that sound really good. So you can do some text to speech stuff. And we've seen, I'll give some really bad examples first. There's a weather script. Dial an extension, it pulls a file from some weather site, and it says, your local temperature is whatever. And personally, I prefer looking out the window versus calling an extension, but whatever. It shows you can do it. And it shows an example of using a text file into a text-to-speech system and seeing how you can do things. Things that we are actually implementing here soon are monitoring systems that actually are actively monitoring our client stations and their networks, their SMTP servers and all that. And when there's a failure, my phone rings, and instead of telling me the server's down, I'll just get a message saying, that machine is down, and that way I don't have to actually go back and look and look it up. It'll actually tell me the situation. So there's some interesting things that are being done with text-to-speech. And of course, three-way calling and voicemail are given that they can do that.
Three-way is more than three-way, or just
well, you can do three-way calling by bridging 2 lines, or you can do things like setting up a conference room, which really has no hard limit, other than the number of channels that are being transcoded at one time, which, depending on your codecs and all that, I mean, you could have 50 people or 200 people, depending on your configuration and horsepower behind it. But there are some huge systems out there. If anyone's heard of freeconferencecalling.com, you can go to it, set up a free conference call. They use Asterisk for that. I mean, and that's a big online conference call system. So you can do a lot of stuff given hardware and codec, tweaking to make it run really good.
Okay, one more question.
Absolutely.
Blind transfer, is that the same as hunting?
Blind transfer, there's 2 things. Blind transfer and what's the other one? Attended transfer. Blind transfer is, I hit a key, hit in your extension, and it just drops the call to you. An attended transfer is I dial your extension, you pick it up, I say, John's on the phone, and you say, okay, great. Then I hit transfer, and it goes over. So there's unattended versus attended transfer. What was the second, your clarification on that?
Oh, hunting.
A hunt group?
Hunting, where you go search for the person, and it never knows.
Okay, well, we call it as a ring group, where we can define a number of extensions, and an extension can be a phone, it can be an external phone number, such as a cell phone, and we have multiple different strategies we can use in that ring group. We can say ring all, so if we go to that, it simply does that, it rings them all. We have a hunt group where it will ring one, then ring the other, and then ring the next one. And then we have another mode where it will ring one, then ring 1 and 2, then ring 1, 2, and 3, 1, 2, 3, and 4 all at the same time. So there's several different strategies involved in setting up a ring group. And in fact, hopefully one of the guys who is listening to this online right now just did a modification to that yesterday, where it actually allows a little more functionality in how it handles caller ID functions. So Phil, if you're out there, yeah, good job on that. And then queuing is similar to a ring group in that the call goes to the queue, but instead of it simply going out to the group of phones, it puts that person on hold while it tries to contact somebody to take that call. So the phones may be ringing, but the person who called is sitting listening to music on hold until an agent picks up the phone, accepts that call, and then that call is routed to that person. So that's kind of the difference between ring groups and queues. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions on that? Guys are too smart or shy or what? We'll keep going. What?
Too many people staring at the computer.
Ah.
That's not true.
So Asterisk is really making inroads. Over the past, like I said, I've been using it for about 2 years now. I've been very impressed with where it was then, and especially where it's going now. The initial people who used it, people like ourselves, you know, the sysadmins, do-it-yourselfers, the IT people who were really interested in new technologies and the things that were coming out and wanted to be on the cutting edge of something really cool. Now, show of hands, how many people read Slashdot on a daily basis? Okay, once a week. Okay, that's even more. All right. So, going back almost 2 years ago now, 19 months, 20 months ago, I wrote an article called How to Build Your Own PBX. And it was about using Asterisk. Amazing amount of traffic to my website. I mean, it's just Slashdot effect to the extreme, you know, thousands and thousands of concurrent connections. That's when I started going, oh, hey, maybe I'm onto something here. And then last October, I was asked to do a presentation at AstroCon in Anaheim, which is a big Asterisk conference. And I was the third presenter in the beginner track. And I listened to the first two, I'm like, wow, I'm really going to sound stupid after these guys. I mean, this stuff is really advanced, what they're talking about, and this is the beginner track. And they had about 40 people in each one. And then when I got up to do mine, which is actually based on what's called Asterisk at Home, which is a complete distro that does everything, complete installation. I mean, it was standing room only. There was almost 200 people there. And that's when I really hit it that, okay, wait, I really need to do this as a business. And that's when we started selling systems. So in the past 18 months, since the time that I wrote the first article to now, the growth rate has just been exponential. Where very few people had even heard of it or seen it or definitely had not implemented it. Now we're seeing it anywhere from tiny companies to Fortune 500 companies are putting it in different places. Sometimes it's the voicemail system to a traditional PBX system. Sometimes it's they're using it as a VoIP gateway into their traditional system. So there's a lot of ways to use Asterisk without it being the primary phone system. So we can tie into other types of phone systems, Nortel, ShoreTel, Cisco, Avaya, Mitel. I mean, if they can hook up to a phone line, we can connect to it and start piecing off parts of that functionality. So as older phone systems, their voicemail systems are beginning to die and they want more functionality, we can push Asterisk into the mix and give them voicemail to email capabilities. We can put it in the mix and have certain extensions or certain phone numbers routed to the Asterisk box for overseas calls using internet telephone service providers. We can do all kinds of interesting things with it. We're actually working on a project right now where they have 21 locations around the globe, and each one has its own phone system, and no two of them are alike. But we're going to put an Asterisk box at each location tied into those systems, which then all mesh back together. So that as they make a call from here to Hong Kong, it goes out over their VPN connection instead of their telco connection, saving them probably in the range of $10,000 a month. So this will pay for itself in a matter of months. So it's a lot more than just a phone system. I mean, it is a toolkit to do telephony applications. So it's a matter of how you look at it. Even though Digium says it's Asterisk PBX, it's a whole lot more than that. It really is a toolkit to enable you to do some really exciting things. As I mentioned some of our clients before, ehobbies.com, Promax, Cortex. You'll know Cortex soon enough. Just trust me on this. Wireless video from your laptop to a projector, your TV, amazing. Coming out soon. Genius Products, a division of Miramax Film, Carl's Jr., Auto Centro, 75 car dealerships all tied together. Some really cool things that we can do that there really is no other way of doing without tools like Asterisk and IP-based PBX systems. I guess I just said that, huh? More than just a PBX. Connect to existing systems, legacy systems or VoIP capabilities, used to tie multiple offices and locations together, and it can be used as a conference bridge. So I've already mentioned a lot of these things in passing already. the voicemail system, VoIP capabilities, conference bridging, so instead of paying the telco for the conference system, you can just throw in an Asterisk box. So how do we manage it? And people like Mitch here, he likes config files. I don't. I'm a GUI guy. Oh, might sound right, but I like it to be simple. I like it to be easy. I like it to be functional. I like to be able to train more lesser skilled people to manage it, maintain it. So I've been a big supporter of the different web GUIs that are out there. Druid, beautiful interface, kind of lacking in functionality at the moment. They're moving up fast. FreePBX, absolutely my favorite right now from a functionality point of view, just not very pretty, kind of buggy, got some issues, but making a lot of progress on it. Third Lane, another one, very good commercial product. Probably over the next year, this list will be 3 times as long. And it wouldn't surprise me if, Digium has something, or buy somebody, or do something, and come up with something that really blows all the rest of these out of the water. People in the enterprise environment want something that they can manage, or that their IT people can manage, without having to call in the phone guy to come in and manage phones and extensions. That's been the biggest reason a lot of the companies that we've dealt with have switched. You have a Toshiba system and you need to add an extension. It's $250 an hour to have someone come out and do 5 minutes worth of work. We can show them how to do that using a web interface in 2 minutes time, and they can do it themselves. So they don't have to call us for 5 minutes worth of work. Or if they do want us to do it, we can do it remotely because it's web-based. We can get into their network and set it up and not ever have to pay a visit to them. Saving a company tons and tons of money over the long haul by not having to fork out so much money to the traditional phone guys. So we mentioned FreePBX, by far the most popular open source web interface. Those are the people we invited them to kind of join and listen in. Is anyone watching, Mitch?
How would I know? Oh, the account? Like, I can't see.
Well, no, I mean, are you chatting with them right now?
I can't get to it because I use Windows and no one here cares about that.
God, yeah. Isn't that like blasphemy in this room?
I have to install it. It's a deal.
There's a lot of community development going on with FreePBX. I've contributed code. I know a lot of other people who have contributed code. Because it really is a good interface for it. It does a lot of things. Granted, all it's doing is writing config files. It stores its data in a MySQL database, and then when you apply your changes, it recreates the config files. So it's not doing anything that you couldn't do by hand. And in some ways, it's limiting you because you can't really do custom stuff for each person. You have to work within the confines of the interface, even though nowadays, because it's very modular, the way they've designed it, so people are writing the modules all the time to enhance it. Even though a lot of the functionalities that people have wanted has been added or is being added right now, you're still limited in exactly what you want to do sometimes. You can still go and edit config files. You just have to be careful that you're not overwriting the different settings. Yeah?
Is this on top of LAMP stack?
I'm sorry, what?
Is this on top of Linux, Apache, MySQL kind of stack?
Yes.
Or?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So it needs a web browser and
yeah,
all the usual stuff on it. Okay.
Exactly. Your basic, well, MySQL is the only database supported by FreePBX. Druid, I think, is Postgres, and so depending on which one, but FreePBX is MySQL and Apache. Lost my train of thought there. Tons of features, and I put features in quotes as I was just saying because it doesn't add anything to Asterisk that you can't do by hand. If you know how to do it within a config file, you can do it in a config file. So even though FreePBX talks about how many features it has, it's just making it easier to implement things that you could already do if you wanted to do it manually with the config files. Some people are actually fairly quick at doing it with config files once you know the syntax and everything. But still, from a maintenance point of view, it's to have something that's very specific and really you don't go outside that box is probably a lot better for most businesses, kind of keeps them from getting into too much trouble. if you can't go outside the interface, it's a lot easier to maintain. So as I mentioned, it's front-end modules that create the custom dial plans, follow me functions, ring groups, call queues, text-to-speech, all the other features that we've kind of mentioned are individual modules within the system that have been created. We're actually going to look at the FreePBX interface and get a kind of a feel for exactly what it does in just a few minutes. But we'll kind of keep going here. So TrixBox and Asterisk at Home, as I mentioned before, is a complete ISO distro. You download it, burn the ISO image, boot it up off your computer, preferably one that you really don't want any data off of because it will wipe the hard drives. And it installs CentOS 4.3, Asterisk, FreePBX, MySQL, Flash Operator Panel, the call data reports, the weather script, the wake up script, billing stuff, group speed dial, a bunch of stuff that you may never use. So it's actually probably overkill for most people, but the fact is from the time you boot off that ISO image to the time that you can actually have two phones talking to each other and dialing out, you can do it in under an hour. So, and even faster on a really fast machine. I mean, my record was last week. I had a super powerful box that we did it on, and I had the entire system up and running in about 45 minutes. I mean, and it's mostly automated. It's okay, tap, tap, come back in 20 minutes as it's compiling. It's a very fast install. So if you want to look at Asterisk and play around with it and get a feel for it, this is a good way of doing it, just because you can get it up and running without having to go through, you know, installing Linux and installing MySQL and installing Apache. It does it all with the right permissions and the right user groups and all that, so it's up and running properly. If you're a purist, like some people in the room, won't mention any names, like Mitch, you know, it's not for him, and it's not for everybody. It's you know, a specific type of people that are going to want this. I use it. I build systems off of this. You can do it. But like I said, it's not for everybody. But we're going to look at it anyway, just because I do recommend it as a starting point to start playing around with the system. And really, to get started, get a 300 megahertz machine out of your garage. And I'm sure most of you have spare machines laying around in your garage, because I know I do.
Garages are.
Okay, spare bedrooms. Spare bedrooms, living rooms, dining rooms, your car, whatever, under your bed, hopefully not under your covers, you know, but I'll leave that to you. But it is a great way of getting started. And I'm going to hype on this a little bit more because I actually have a book coming out on this soon. So watch for that in a couple months. But it's not out yet, so I'm not going to give you a link to it. Sorry. And here's a few resource sites to take a look at. Asterisk.org is the main site for Asterisk. TrixBox.org. VoIPspeak.net is my website where I've got product reviews, tutorials, news, information, forum, and stuff. Nerdviddles.com, run by a friend of mine, Ward, back east. Again, lots of tutorials, very specific to TrixBox. So if you're playing around with TrixBox and you want to see how to do some really custom scripts, some auto dialers and things like that, Nerdviddles is a great place to go. And VoIPinfo.org is the main wiki site for Asterisk. So these are ones you definitely want to write down and take a look at. So that's the end of the slides. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and boot up a copy of TrixBox that we have running on here. No, it does not run under Windows. So obviously I am a Windows user, heaven forbid, but I do like the VMware player. It allows me to run through different configurations. I can actually sit and do all my IVR programming for a client while I'm on the road, copy the scripts over, get their system up and running in no time. Some of the IVR menus we've done have been extremely complex. I mean, they've taken 40 plus hours to code just the IVR menus. So people do some pretty crazy things with it. And doing it in a virtual machine Once I have it done, I can just wipe it and start over. So if you're a Windows person, I kind of like this. It's a great way of getting a system up and running. Any questions so far on anything else? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, on the more complex Cisco and Linksys phones where you download a personality to a phone, or you tap it, or you need to download operating system updates for the phone via TFTP. How's Asterisk about stuff like that?
It's great, actually. Again, that type of stuff is not a functionality of Asterisk as much as it is a functionality of the phone. So each of these phones, in fact, every phone I've used to date so far can pull config files off of TFTP. Some of them can do HTTP, some of them can do FTP, but they'll all do TFTP. And actually, I was going to point to the screen, but ain't nothing there. With TrixBox, it actually has a TFTP server built into it, so you can point them right there. There's some tools coming out to actually have a web interface to develop the config files for the phones. There's already one for the Cisco 79 series phones. The next one is going to be, I believe, the Grand Streams, I don't know why, the Polycoms, and then the Linksys phones that people are working on. So people are coming out with those endpoint managers that plug into the TrixBox system, or down the road we're going to see that within FreePBX itself to help you to build those config files. And then copy them to the TFTP server. And maybe you're using DHCP with option 66 to say, there's the box, and power up the phones, and we do the config files the same as doing the firmware updates. Just whatever that phone wants and how you put it there, they work just fine.
You said it didn't run on Windows, does it run on Mac?
Yes. Yes, it can. It'll run on OS 10. Absolutely. There's some great resources on how to do that on VoIPinfo.org. The only problem is, running it under that, they don't have drivers for some of the cards right now. So if you want to use one of the internal cards for connecting to a T1 line or an analog line, for example, you're kind of out of luck right now. You have to use an external device to come in, but I'm sure that's going to be solved here short term. But as far as getting it up and running in a pure VoIP environment, absolutely, lots of people do it. Did you have a question? Did someone? I thought I saw another hand go somewhere. Because I have to make up time while the thing pulls down.
One thing I didn't understand was you said that these that we downloaded to the phones would work with the TrixBox, but not with FreePBX, which is part of TrixBox. So
let me kind of clarify. FreePBX has no interface to configure the device itself, nor an interface to create the config files for the phones today. There is an endpoint manager as part of TrixBox that will do the Cisco config files.
Which is just a copy.
Yeah, it basically takes a template, says, okay, what extension do you want for it? Boom, it pops out the MAC address file. Right? It's actually really simple. Once you have a config file that you like for any given phone, there's only 3 settings you have to change. The login, the password, and the SIP proxy server. So once you have a config file that works, anybody can write well, maybe not anybody, but probably everybody in this room can write a script that can generate files based on only changing those 3 variables. So it's not a big deal once you have a config file that works. Come on, I know you wanted a question there first. No? Oh, okay.
Sorry.
It's okay. You can scratch. I'm good with that. Anyone else? Oh, we're back up. Okay.
You know what? I got to clarify one more thing.
Sure.
So instead of TrixBox, you really could just use that with Asterisk because it's the key ingredient to.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Come on. TrixBox. Ooh. So we'll go and do the system administration, where we have the endpoint manager, which again is only Cisco right now. The HUD manager, which is the heads-up display, which is from Finality. It's not GPL, so I don't talk about it. Config edit, so it's a real simple editor, so you can actually edit the config files themselves if you need to get to them. And FreePBX. If anyone noticed, this also has PHP MyAdmin, SSH terminal client, and unit in it, which is kind of cool. But here's FreePBX. When first time you run it, that's really all you see. And you have to go to the tools and go to the module admin and then download whatever modules you want for it. So there's an online repository for all the modules that come out. If we look at the base setup here, so we can set up a callback function. You dial in, hit a key, it hangs up, calls you back, and then does something. So a lot of people use this as a way to get into the voicemail system so that it's calling you back. Or if you have free inbound calls to your cell phone, call your phone system, it hangs up, it calls you back, so it's free incoming calls, gives you dial tone, so now you can dial out anywhere you want and you're not sucking up minutes on your cell phone. Yeah, see, you people got that one. I knew something here was going to impress people. So that's a cool little hack right there. So free inbound calls, there's the ticket. I have T-Mobile, so I'm not can't do that yet. But that's a great feature. Conferences, again, I've mentioned conferences again because I think this is just a really cool system the way they've done it now. It really does work the way you would expect a conference system to work. You know, you can set pins for the users, a pin for the admin, a join message, wait for the leader to join, you know, quiet mode, user count, user join, leave, music on hold while the leader's not in. You know, you can have a menu function so you can get to an IVR menu from within it. So everything that you would expect from, you know, a professional quality enterprise class conference system, you can do right here within FreePBX. DISA is direct inward system access, which again can do the same functionality I've already described. You can dial in, you get into the system. So basically getting dial tone back, you can traverse the system, you can dial out as if you were an extension on the system. So where might you use something like this? Well, a year ago this week, my wife had gallbladder surgery, and the hospital only allowed local phone calls. But she wanted to call her family, which of course is nowhere near local. So she would call into the local, into our PBX, which was local, get dial tone, and then be able to dial long distance to talk to her family while she was in the hospital. So it's a great use of that type of feature. There's a lot of other reasons why you might, but that actually is a really good one. The digital receptionist is pretty much what it sounds like. And I know a lot of companies, you know, really switched over quick when that came out and, you know, got rid of their receptionists and said, oh, we want the system to take all the phone calls. And then there was kind of a resurgence to go back to a live person. And now the technology's kind of catching up. They're starting to move back into the digital receptionists again. So we're kind of seeing that trend switch back. And the functionality within FreePBX that allows us to set that up is actually pretty cool. So we can enable the directory, so they hit pound. It says, you know, you're in the company directory. You can dial by first or last name. Direct dial to extensions. Is it you want an announcement to come on first? You know, press 1 for sales, 2 for billing. And then we say what extension, what number do we want to dial, and where do we want it to go. And if we have more of these other functions set up, the options here grow in accordance to whatever other conditions we have set up. So we may have miscellaneous routes or other extensions or ring groups, and if all those were set up, we have a lot more options to do. So when you're programming your IVR, you have to do it backwards. You know, you start at the end point and then move back towards the main menu because you have to have all the other pieces there first. So you have to think backwards when you do it.
Define setup here.
What?
Define setup.
Setup?
Yeah, what did you mean that you had to set up these things? Is that installing modules, or is that getting back to doing the config?
Like if I wanted to hit 5 to go to a ring group, I would have to define the ring group first before I have that as an option here.
But you're saying that now you're saying that's in the GUI though.
Yeah, we're just looking at the FreePBX GUI. If you're doing it with config files, go for it.
But are you saying, when you say you have to work backwards, did you mean that this is, you're talking about procedure that you, how you would use the GUI?
Yes. Well, actually, in essence, you would do it in a config file as well, because you're going to define those destinations first. And you're going to lay it out in a flowchart probably if it's complicated, so you know exactly where you're going to go, and you can start coding it any way you want. You know, within this GUI, you have to think backwards and do your endpoints, and then work back from there.
It's like defining a variable before you use it.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't see the ring group unless I've defined the ring group. It's pretty simple. And then with extensions, we've got different types of extensions. SIP, again, it's a standard SIP device or soft phone. IAX or EX, depending on how you want to pronounce it. There are some hard devices that use that. There's some of the better soft phones use that, and that protocol traverses NAT much better than SIP, so it's a good choice for people who are on the road. ZAP is the phone system, the kind of PSTN connections. Those are referred to as ZAP channels, or custom, which can be custom defined. It can be all kinds of different things. I can set up a custom dial string to dial my cell phone, and I do all kinds of different things. When we look at an extension, and again, this being the GUI, you do have all these options within the config files. You just have to know exactly how to set them up. And so we're just kind of cheating by showing this. But I do expect a lot of people are going to play around with FreePBX first, and get a feel for how all the pieces kind of come together. And you may stick with it. You may not. Like I said, it's not for everybody, but for those of us who, want to get a system up and running faster without having to delve into, a big book on Asterisk, which I should mention, there is a book, Asterisk, The Future of Telephony. Do a search on Google for that. It's a free PDF download, or you can go buy the hard copy books. It's what?
Someone asked, would you say TrixBox is like Asterisk for dummies?
Yes, I would. I actually would. Because to get TrixBox up and running requires virtually no Linux skills or telephony knowledge. However, to build a production system and maintain it properly, you're going to know, or have to know, Linux and telephony. So yeah, it's a great way of getting in and learning it and playing around with it, but don't expect that, you'll put this up tomorrow, get a soft phone working, and be able to go out and sell, 100 station installs, because there's a lot more to it than just what you can do, by slapping in an ISO image and getting going. So, but it's not that bad. And considering I'm talking at a Linux users group, I'm guessing you guys probably know Linux. It's just a guess. I mean, so it's probably not a big stretch for you to do, RPMs, for example, things like that. So I don't see that as being a big stretch. You might even know things like VI. Just guessing. What's that? I'm not even going to go there. Not going to go there.
Just keep dusting down, man.
Nano. Yeah, baby. Pico. I'm there. I'm a hard convert to those. I mean, I can use VI, but I'm so lazy, it's just not even funny. So it's not a skill thing. It's pure and simple laziness. That's all there is to it. I'll admit that right up front. Or back to extensions. That's what we're talking about. When you set up an extension, you can have a direct DID, which is direct inward dial. So everyone can have, if you have multiple phone numbers coming into your system, everyone can be assigned their own phone number. I mean, we see that in higher end systems already. It's very simple to implement here. DID alert info, so you can have the different dial tones or different ring patterns based on who's calling you. You can set up emergency CIDs. You can record the calls incoming and outgoing. which you just have to be careful about that because Asterisk does not send out a tone on a regular basis. So in California, which is all I'm going to talk about, you have to tell the people that you're going to record their calls if you ever want to use it against them anyway. But it's all built in, and there's a whole interface that you can use if you so desire to listen to those and play them back and keep track of them.
What's the DID alert info field?
Here you go, read it. It's for setting up distinctive ring based on caller ID. So if the phone happens to support distinctive ring, which the Grand Streams don't, but the Linksys does, then you could say, you know, if it's set, then you know, use that. But it doesn't work on all phones at this point. That's not really a standard thing that's in all. That's one thing you'll find when you're looking at different phones is there is no standardization at all today. I mean, some phones will support things one way, others will do something different. Of the 5 major phones that are in use today, they all do paging differently, for example. It's one has a space where the other has a backslash, and so there's little nuances with each phone that you have to get used to. So right now there's that kind of whole issue of standardization on a lot of the things, and I expect that's going to change over time, and probably not quickly, because your big guys like Cisco and Linksys are going to try and push the smaller guys like Grandstream and Snome and try and get their standard in place versus the others. I mean, that's the way it always works. So I expect that to go on for a long time. And yet, Linksys has actually been pretty good about trying to be flexible with the whole thing, because they kind of missed the boat early on when they have their own little IP PBX system that's about that big, called the SPA 9000. It supports 4 to 16 extensions, and it's an interesting little box. I'm not going to bash it too bad. But it's an interesting box, and they thought that with their phone was just going to take over the world. And when they invited me to take a look at the phone before they shipped it, I said, that's going to be the #1 selling phone next year. This was about a year ago. And sure enough, it is the #1 selling phone, but not with their phone system. You know, go figure. You know, but all the people who support Asterisk, VoIPlink.com, VoIPsupply.com, ATA.com, all these guys who are the resellers of these equipment, they cannot keep this phone in stock. It's a very popular phone with Asterisk. So they kind of caught on to that real quick that, well, wait a minute, we're selling way more phones than we are phone systems. Something's not adding up here, and now they're trying to work with Digium to become Linux certified and make whatever changes they need to. So they saw it pretty quick. So unlike, you know, Cisco, who's just like, nope, don't want to talk to you about it, Linksys has actually been fairly responsive in trying to come up to speed with what's going on with Asterisk and hopefully trying to work with everybody. I know they've been really good with me as far as you know, some of the articles that I've written and making sure that we figure out how to do different things.
So are they on the coolness factor, are they #1?
I'm not going to say yes to that. From a cool company point of view, with most people, I would say probably not. They're up there, but probably not. With me, I have an excellent relationship with them. I've been working with them for a long time. I write product reviews for them. I've been completely honest in my reviews of their phones. And when I reviewed the first model of this, which was the 941, it didn't have a backlit display. You know, I'm like, in my article, I said, you guys have a $150 phone without a backlit display, and I can buy an $85 one with a display so bright I have to turn it off because it lights up my room at night. You know, and I don't know about you guys, but I kind of work in the dark for the most part. You know, I keep the lights down dim, so I'm working on the screen all day. I can't see the phone. And when the phone call comes in, I can't see who's on it. And to me, that was a major setback with their phone. Well, the 942s were getting ready to come out just at the time that my article hit, and they gave me a call. They said, you know, because of you, we're delaying it so we can put a backlight on the phones. I'm like, okay. I said, no, just wait until I bash on the next version. Okay, because the next version, you know, okay, great, that was great for the phone, it got backlit, but when I reviewed this phone, I said, there's not enough soft keys. You know, now that has become the big issue. People want, guess what? They want, again, back to this phone. They want a bunch of programmable keys where I can program this to different extensions within my office and see who's on the phone or not. I can see their call status. I can't do it with only 4 lines. So, you know, I was nice at first, but then I hit them again. And so they said, wait, we have a solution coming out. So they're going to have a what's called a sidecar, which will plug into this and give you a line of extensions on it.
Linux sidecar will support SIP. Because Cisco's sidecars have been available for a while, you just don't run the SIP protocol.
That's correct. That's correct. And all of the Linksys products are SIP only. So.
Do you use the Polycom sidecars?
No, I don't. I didn't really like them. They were just, I had issues with them in the past. I had a couple clients try them out. They didn't like them. And if we needed to go into a sidecar scenario, we've been using the Gnome 360 with their sidecar, and they've been really happy with those. And it's a much less expensive phone. And the quality is still pretty decent for a receptionist phone. The Grandstreams, the phone here, the Grandstream, yeah, cheap phone, but they have a huge sidecar, and you can expand it out to like 96 extensions. And, you know, it's crazy. They're trying, I'll give them credit for trying, but it still is kind of problematic in that area. So, but from a cool point of view that Linksys is trying, I'll give them credit for that. Grandstream, they try, I'm just not sure they try hard enough. Buggy firmware, they'll come up with a new one and adds echo, and they come up with something else and it fixes the echo, but it kills the side tone. I mean, it's been very problematic, even though they've kind of been trying. So if there's one that really, I guess, stands out more than the rest, I'd probably have to say it was Linksys just by default. But
so they're ideals that nobody's really meeting yet because they're afraid.
Yeah, and it's a shame right now, because I still think the big companies like that are really missing the boat. Polycoms, I love their phones. I mean, anyone who's ever used a Polycom phone, regardless of whether it was SIP or analog, they are awesome phones. I mean, the sound quality cannot be touched by anybody out there. Their speaker phones, hands down, the best out there. As far as Ash was concerned, it could drop off the face of the planet tomorrow. Absolutely don't care. You know, you get zero support from them. It works fine, but they just don't really see that as a market that they're in. And again,
that matters somehow?
What?
That matters somehow?
I don't know that it matters to an extent. As long as we have workarounds to make their phones work with our systems, I guess that really is all that matters in the end. But it would be nice if they improved some of the things to work better with Asterisk. Things like adding the BLF function that the cheap $85 phone has, and backlit displays, and things that people have really asked for, just in general, let alone anything that's Asterisk specific. So, great phones, but they don't really listen to what people are really, you know, wanting these days. Awesome sound quality, great. That's their thing, you know. Lots and lots of features, not so great quality, that's their thing, you know. So there's pros and cons to all of them, you know. And I could go on and on about all the different brands, Astron, Gnome, and all those, but you know, you're best just to do some research, try out some phones if you're going to look at them. It boils down to me, I'll use the Linksys or the Polycoms, and that's pretty much it. And I know my clients are going to be happy with it. You know, after you see 200 of these things get sent back because they're so bad, you go, okay, I'm only going to sell good phones from now on. Is there a question in the back?
What's BLF?
BLF is blind line function. That's what I mentioned, where you can set this to someone's extension, and when they're on the phone, you'll see the light. When there's phones ringing, you'll see it flash. So it's being able to see the remote line status blindly. You know, I don't have to actually look at their phone. I can see it from here. I can see what's going on, which is a function of traditional PBX systems for years.
It's useful if you like actually walk into the other person's office instead of calling them. I always do that. I like get there and go, hey, they're on the phone.
Yeah. Yeah.
What does the Asterisk PBX system cost? I mean, just like it?
Well,
Say just the server or PBX.
again, it's open source software, so what is your hardware? I mean, it's hardware and labor is what it boils down to.
Finality's selling one under 1,000 for 9 something.
Yes, yes they are, which is surprising that they're doing it that way. And it is Asterisk based. It's off actually a fairly old version of Asterisk now, so it's kind of limited in features. It's their own web interface. When you make a change, you're actually making a change on their web servers, which stores the configuration there and then pushes it out to your box, so that should your box die, they can just push out a new config file to you and get you back up and running. So there are some benefits to it, and Finality wins a number of deals in the very small business market, up to about 10 to 12 users. Above that, people want the other functionality that Asterisk provides that is not capable of being done within the Finality interface. But you know, and they got a bunch of money for funding. You know, I sit in on the calls every once in a while, just kind of get caught up with what they're doing. And you know, as of like 2 months ago, they had sold 800 systems, which to me, I'm like, you guys got $5 million in funding, and you know, you got 8,000 resellers, and you've sold 800 systems. That doesn't seem like it's working too well, you know. But it's a niche market. I mean, they've defined this is our niche, and that's what we're going to go for. And I think over time, that will probably ramp up again. But you're seeing a lot of just general IT guys, wiring guys, other people out there, you know, becoming Finality resellers so that they can try and edge their way into the telephone space. As an IT guy myself, you know, that always bugged me. You know, I'm sitting there, you know, working on the network for a company, and yet they've got a simple problem with their phone. They've got to call someone else. So I could never really be that one-stop IT shop for my clients unless I became Panasonic certified or Toshiba certified or Mitel certified, you know, all the other brands that are out there. But Asterisk gives me that ability to get in the door, sell the system to them, sell the service on top of it, and I'm giving them a bargain with more features than they could get from anyone else. So it is a win-win in my book, and it's a good sell too. I say, look, it's a computer. It runs on Ethernet. That means it's mine. Go away. You know, it's my domain when it's on the Ethernet and it's a computer. And you know, and it's true. Right? That's how we're getting in the door. And feature-wise, they can't compete, and cost-wise, they can't compete. You know, how many phones do you want? Do the math. You know, what's the cost of a really high-end killer server these days? $1,000. You know, open source software. Now you're talking labor. You know, and depending on the complexity, now to hire a consultant to come in and set it up, do the programming, set all this stuff up, connect all the phone circuits and all that. Yeah, you're probably going to be in for a few $1,000s here or there, depending on the complexity of your system. But it's still far cheaper than any other system out there. Yeah.
I think the answer to the question is traditional PBXs typically run about $1,000 per station.
$1,000 a station, yeah.
And VoIP systems right now are running between $500 and $800 a station on average. So that's an all-in cost. So you kind of make that approximation.
Right.
That includes the phone, right?
That includes the phone.
That includes the phone. Now, the other thing to keep in mind, virtually any other system that's out there, if you want to add an extension, you have to buy another license. You know, you want to add ring groups, you're buying a piece of hardware or another license, and you want to add another feature, it's another license, and you know, you kind of get licensed to death with a lot of the systems. But here, once you have it, it's there. There's no limits, there's no extension limits, there's no user licenses. It's all there. So, especially in the long run, or more especially in a growth potential, you can't beat the price. Yeah.
Yeah, this is kind of a newbie question, but can you upgrade Asterisk on the fly without interrupting service?
No.
No. However,
just like updating any software.
However, the update time is extremely short. You can recompile and get it all ready to go, and then do a stop and start and have it back up and running in literally seconds. So, yeah, I mean, it's very quick. So you don't have to shut it down to do your rebuild. you can sit there and do your rebuild and then shut it down and bring it back up. So we can do an upgrade and actually watch the call volume, and as soon as it stops, we do a stop and start, and we're back up, and they never knew they were ever down. So, I mean, of course, we schedule it, but in the back, you've been trying.
I'm totally not knowledgeable about PBX.
Well, there's no stupid questions, only stupid people. So go right ahead.
I see this internet cloud and asterisks in the middle there, and having these network phones plug into it, fine and dandy. But the part that eludes me is, say I'm at home and I want to try this out. How do I connect that to
something?
SBC,
okay.
To the telco?
Excellent question. There's a couple different ways that you can do that. Well, first off, is your wife really patient with you? If not, you probably don't want to use the phone lines. Okay, so there's one. Okay, it's very difficult to pass the wife test with one of these systems at home when you're testing it. So what a lot of people do is they'll get what we call an ITSP, an Internet Telephone Service Provider. And you can get the, $10 a month or, 1.5 cents a minute, and, put 20 bucks on it, it'll last you months while you sit there and learn the ins and outs of the system. And then all your calls, inbound and outbound, are simply going out over your internet connection. You have no connection to the actual phone company other than these internet telephone service providers. Teleax is a good one. Vitality is a good one. Broad Voice, there's like hundreds of them out there. At last count, there was over 2,000 in the country. It's not hard to find. The best thing to do would be, post in a forum, get on the, maybe one of the IRC channels, Asterisk or FreePBX, and ask, what people are recommending. You'll get some links. I use Vitality myself, and it's like 1.39 cents a minute, and it's been really reliable for me. I have my 888 number through there. I have 888. I do VoIP. I don't know how I managed to steal that, but and that's like 2 cents a minute for my toll-free number and things like that. Now, when you want to go to the next step and you want to connect to a traditional phone line or POTS line or PSTN line, there's a couple different ways of doing it. Digium has a card. You can go up to 4 analog lines on the card. It's the TDM 400. You get modules that plug on there, plug your phone lines right into the back, tell the system I've got that many number of channels, and now you're on the phone system. They have a bigger card, full-size card, that can go up to 24 analog lines. There's small devices. Linksys has one of my favorites. It's called the SPA 3000. And it's about a little bit bigger than like 2 decks of cards, and runs about $89, and it's a single port phone line adapter. So it's phone in and voice over IP out. So connect it in, and it comes in as a SIP trunk into Asterisk. That is a wonderful device. The new version of that is the SPA 3102, which does all that and is a full router with QoS and everything in it for the same price. So it's really cool little devices. Coming out in
what was the name of that stuff?
The SPA 3102 from Linksys.
You want to mention how 911 fits in?
It's a good point. Coming out from Linksys in, I'm guessing about a month because the betas just went out yesterday, is called the SPA 400, which is a 4-port analog to SIP converter with actually a voicemail server on it if you're running their phone system. But and with Asterisk, it's going to be a 4-port analog to SIP, and that is expected to be in the $200 to $250 price range. Then there's channel banks that will bring it in as a T1 connection and all kinds of stuff, and those are going to be in the $2,000 price range. So anything from 1 up is kind of the limit. Now, if you start doing research, and now I'm going to give my little disclaimer here, you'll see people talking about the X100P card, okay? Digium used to have what they call the X100P, which is just a single port PCI card. They got rid of it because it was a pile of junk. All it is a generic Intel Win modem. Never designed to do voice applications. Pick them up on eBay for $6, pop it in, you can work. I've done it, it works. The sound quality is bad, they have interrupt problems, you'll get choppy sound, you'll have numerous problems. So all the people that I know who have actually done it on a regular basis, you'll find one card that works great, one card that doesn't, and you'll spend days trying to figure out why, and it's just a bad card. So I personally recommend don't going down that route, even though it's tempting because you can get the cards for $10. It's often a lot more hassle than it's worth. So,
what about the better quality modems?
No. The Intel Win modem generic clone is really the only one that's known to work. If you're going to go for it, go for it. Spend the $89 for the single port adapter, and then you're not going to have the call quality issues.
And that was the single port was the SGA3102?
The 3000 or the 3102. Oh. The 3102 has the router built in, the 3000 doesn't. That's the only difference. Now, a point that Mitch brought up is, especially when we're talking about these internet telephone service providers, is 911 service. How do you dial 911 if your calls are just blasting out over the internet somewhere? Some of the providers provide the E911 service. You have to go in, you set it up, and say, if a call comes in from my line, here's my address and all that, which is great if you never leave your house. Not so good if you've got remote extensions all over the place and who knows where the call's coming from. So that is a problem that we still face today in how to deal with 911. With this Linksys device, the 3000 or the 3102, it has a mode where you can set a dial plan, so if you dial 911, instead of sending it out there, it'll send it back out to the phone line and redirect it. So if you're doing these hybrid systems that are a combination of phone lines and voice over IP, we always want to keep those phone lines there for doing the 911 service. It just makes a lot of sense that way. But it is something to think about, especially in a production rollout. You have to take that into consideration. Other questions?
So in terms of scaling of the hardware, what kind of server for different size jobs are we looking at?
I've yet to really tax a machine, even at 100 extensions, because it's not the number of extensions, it's the number of concurrent calls that really racks on a system. And typically you run 25% of the number of extensions is how many phone lines you need. So if you have 100 extensions, you're probably going to need 25 phone lines coming in. And 25 phone lines coming into your typical P4 system, it's going to be running 2% utilization. What will eat it up is conferences where you have people coming in over different mediums. You have these people coming in over SIP, and these guys are coming in over analog, and other types of things where it has to do the transcoding for everybody. That's where you'll see a lot of CPU eaten up. But if you're not using that functionality, you can scale up pretty high, but you do have problems going really wide with it today. It's all being worked on right now, but we have seen systems that have 10,000 users on them spread across multiple machines. So there are ways of doing it. There just isn't, like super cool whiz-bang clustering solutions quite yet, although that's coming. But it'll scale up pretty nicely. One of our largest installs, pushing about 90 extensions right now, is running on a 3 gigahertz machine with a gig of RAM, and the thing is just like idle, and it's just not even being touched at all.
One CPU?
Yeah, single CPU on it. Now granted, that has the PRI T1 voice coming into it, which actually is pretty easy on the system, all things considered. So that box is just stone cold. I mean, it just doesn't, it's not doing anything. Makes it a game server, I guess.
What do you do? What do you do for power outages with your system?
Lots of batteries.
Lots of batteries or UPSs?
UPSs, yeah. Yeah, and being CentOS, there's things like the APC modules that you can get to do a clean shutdown and all that. I was going to say, fortunately, we haven't seen a lot of power outages lately, until this summer, you know, which has just been absolutely brutal. I've never seen so many power outages before. And fortunately, we haven't had a system go down, even though a couple of them got hit. But they had an hour of backup time on them, and it wasn't quite enough. And a couple of them went down, they came up clean, and everything was good. But and you definitely have an issue if you have power over Ethernet phones, because your power consumption it's going to tank.
Right.
Yeah, so it's definitely a problem, and fortunately it's 2 months of the year, and the other 10 we really don't have to worry about it too much. Hopefully, we'll see. But yeah, losing 1,000 or 1,200 total transformers in a 2-week period is a little brutal on systems, but we scraped through, and it wasn't horrible. But we try and get the biggest battery backup systems our clients can afford, and try and let them go as long as possible, and isolate them. If they're using power over Ethernet, we don't put them on the same UPS as the phone system and things like that. Or we try and keep one, powered separately with maybe its own UPS under the receptionist's desk, so that the phone service isn't interrupted completely. But that's about all you can do.
So for your customers, you're mostly using DGM cards?
It depends on the situation. With the T1E1 or the T1 cards, the PRI cards, the Digium cards are actually pretty good. The single span card does not have echo cancellation on it, so I typically don't use that one unless the customer is like really cheap. But the higher end cards are a couple grand. They're the single port card is almost $500. And you move up to 1,000 for a dual port and 2,200 for a quad port, but those are the ones with echo cancellation on them. The Rhino cards are excellent cards as well. You can go to channelbanks.com. Rhino equipment, I do love their stuff. You don't have native support for it with the basic distributions, but they'll give you a little C file, tell you how to recompile it, get it up and running. It's like 5 minutes and I was able to get a Rhino card up and working. And I was very impressed with the Rhino equipment. The other one is Sangoma. They're really doing cool stuff with their cards. Some neat motherboard, daughterboard combinations that you can go from 4 to 24 inbound lines and T1 cards. And their background is more along the lines of traditional engineering types. So their stuff is really rock solid. I've been very impressed with the Sangoma stuff. But some people, they're stuck on brand. Oh, it's Digium, that's what we'll use. Oh, great, there's nothing wrong with the cards. I've used many of them, and I'm really happy with them. But Rhino and Sangoma, they're coming up quick. I've been really, really satisfied with them.
Is the Sangoma supported out of the box?
No, same with the Rhino. The Sangoma is actually a little harder to get up and running than the Rhino. You have to install this whole WAN pipe driver and everything else. But once it's up and running, it's pretty straightforward. And they have good instructions, and both of those companies have just phenomenal tech support. Rhino, I called Rhino on a Sunday afternoon, and the guy like, hey, what's going on? I'm just here working on our system. What can I do for you? And he spent 3 hours on the phone with me troubleshooting a problem. I've been really happy with them. So given the choice, I actually like Rhino a little better on some of their stuff. It's been good, especially their channel bank. They've got a really sweet 24-port channel bank. They can do 24 analog lines into it, and out of the back, it looks like it's T1 out, so I can use a PRI card in the box, and I have a really clean connection going to those. And then when the client upgrades to an actual PRI line, you just take the channel bank out and plug it straight in. So it's a great upgrade path. And at 24 lines, your choices are pretty limited. You have a channel bank, or you have the Digium TDM 2400. It's a $2,000 card.
Right.
So if you're going to spend $2,000, I'd rather get the Rhino so that I can take half of it away, plug in directly, and then go resell that channel bank later. So, it's a great way of doing it. Some more questions? Comments? How are we doing?
10 minutes.
Wow. I'm not done.
Philip.
Go ahead. Okay, one more question. Back to what you said about how you could sort of write the program with it, and it would run the program. Now, are there limitations on the languages you can use, or is the configuration file just calling the executable file?
Mitch?
I knew I files? They're
no.
They're plain text.
No, we're talking about other, like using different languages to talk to Asterisk. Now, I pointed to Mitch because Mitch, I'm gonna like talk to you about a little bit about. He actually has a program called Snap, which is a dialer for Windows that talks to Asterisk, tells it to dial. It integrates with Outlook. It's got click to dial from Firefox and from Internet Explorer. We've got a lot of really cool integration stuff. So you can have that running on here. A call comes in, you see it pop up. So, and he did that in .NET. So, you want to talk about using other languages with Asterisk?
Okay. Is that what you want to do? Is manipulate Asterisk from another language? Is that what you're asking?
Well, I was just sort of curious in a very general sense if there was a limitation on what language you can use, or if Asterisk would simply call it a executable file you told it to call.
Yeah, Asterisk has a few different APIs. One is it can connect out. So say if you have an incoming call, and you can have it connect out through, it's called AGI, and it could communicate with another process via standard input, in and out. And so you could use that to control the call flow. So in your script, you could call a database and say, okay, do I want this to forward to cell phone or to my desk phone based on a variable in the database. So you could program it in any language.
Okay. So it just calls an executable file then, and the executable file does whatever you want.
Right.
Okay.
You do have that option.
They have plugins. I mean, there's such examples, Perl, Python, PHP. It's already been written. You can do whatever you want.
There's virtually no limit to scripts that are available. The majority of things are written in Perl, and a lot of PHP scripts. If you're familiar with those, great. You know, if you want to look at C, there's C code, there's TCL, there's Python, I mean, there's Bash scripts, I mean, there's just
anything with just standard input.
All right.
Yeah, so it makes it extremely powerful.
Yeah, again, this is a kind of a real newbie question. I'm trying to envision using something like this in my home. And I have one telco line coming in, and I'm not quite sure how
Whiteboard available?
Maybe this is a question for offline.
Okay.
Let
kind of go over.
It's not a question of general interest.
No, it probably is actually, because it's a pretty common scenario.
Do you want to be centered?
What?
Is he in the camera? Do you want to be centered?
Let me know.
Turn off the projector.
You want to kill that? Kill the projector for a moment?
Let it cool off.
I'll actually diagram my actual configuration that I have, which is fairly interesting. There we go. Okay. So we have our Asterisk box sitting out there, and I've got my my wall plug coming in. So I come out of my wall plug into my SPA 3000. And for a long time, this went right into my Asterisk box that was sitting in my garage on my 19-inch relay rack, because I'm just as much of a geek as anybody else. And then out to the phones that I had laying around my house. We ran our business out of our house for a while. Now we have an office. Well, I didn't move my phone line. My phone line is actually still in my house, but now my Asterisk box is in my office 10 miles away from my house. So this goes out over the internet into my Asterisk box and out to my phones that are in my office or to my cell phone. It also comes all the way back in to phones that I have staying at my house, because I have 3 phones in my house. So you call me, comes in my phone line, into my SPA 3000, out to the internet, out to my Asterisk box, back to my house over the internet, and rings my phone when I'm sitting at my desk. So you can do all kinds of crazy scenarios like that. So to start off simple, a simple interface box, plug it in, have a couple phones laying around, and you can do some pretty easy.
You want to have some fun? You know how you can call, like, from, if you've got Singular or some other phone company, like cell phone company, you make calls to the same people in the network for free. the other day. But what if you do something like this, and you hook up that extra cell phone, right, that you bought for your friends, you know, the friends and family thing, and that's on a different line, and you hook it up in there. So now, wherever you're at, with your cell phone, you call in network for free, and then it goes through the internet, through one of the providers that we were talking about earlier, 1.9 cents per minute. Wouldn't that be kind of cool as an individual?
Absolutely. I mean, there are just some crazy
There's some really
things
cool
people-
stuff you can do with this stuff. So, I mean, we're not just talking about large businesses.
No, not at all. This week, I installed my second smallest install. 3 stations. My smallest was 2. You know, they got it. They went, oh, I want some of these features. I want the call stuff. I want the automated attendant. I want these other things. You know, we bought a $300 box of fries, you know, and some $100 phones. They had a phone system that makes them, their little 2-person law firm sound like some, you know, big honking law firm somewhere. You know, there was a lot of cool advantages to go into a system that we built for under $1,000.
How's the voicemail to email?
It sends a WAV file. A lot of cell phones, not BlackBerries unfortunately, but a lot of cell phones can play WAV files. So you'll get the email to your phone, listen to the WAV file without having to go back and check voicemail. You know, or you get it to your laptop and you check it there. You know, so without having to always call back in to reach your voicemail can come to you.
So think about it. You're sitting here at work, and you can pop in and you can see the phone messages through your email that come into your house. That's kind of cool. Or
Yeah,
you're out on the conference or something.
Yeah, a few moments ago, you were talking about these, I guess, VoIP providers. Now, and then you also said in this system, you're connecting to the regular telco, right? Why wouldn't you use one of these providers rather than your telco?
Okay. Between your Asterisk box and the ITSP that's out there, what do you have in between? You have the internet. How reliable is that?
Rock solid.
Rock solid, exactly. There's never a hiccup anymore. There's never packet loss. Nothing, right? Yeah, not this year, you know. That's why.
Okay.
You know, you have quality of service issues, you have packet loss, you have poor sound quality. And now, home users, that may be fine. You know what? And what I like to say is thank God for cell phones. It lowered the bar. You know, we're used to crappy sound quality these days. You know? So to go from this to this, no brainer. How many times do you get echo on your cell phone, or scratchy sound, or it sounds all garbled, or I gotta call you back here, I can't understand a word you're saying, on a cell phone. So it lowered the bar, you know? So, yeah, that's fine. But in a business environment, not gonna cut it. Not unless this service is from the same company that's providing the circuit into your office, where you can guarantee that quality is gonna be there. So there's the 2 different ways of looking at it. Yeah, your do-it-yourselfers, your home users, feel free. Play around, have fun, experiment. Use it as your primary circuit. Look how popular Vonage is, and they're horrible, you know? And yet, there's 2 million customers, because it works good enough. So if good enough is okay, great. If it's not, well, then you go with traditional phone circuits.
I have one last question, sort of.
I'm in no hurry.
A friend of mine-
You guys, I heard you guys were taking me to dinner afterwards, so I'm, whatever.
Somebody told me that one way to defeat telemarketers is that you can get your phone to transmit a signal that somehow informs their automatic dialing systems that the phone is no longer in service.
Well, the very first
do that
thing.
selectively. Can I put in the numbers of all my friends?
Yes.
And they don't get that tone, but everybody else does.
Sure.
Oh, really?
Absolutely. I mean, just about anything you can conceive of, Mitch can code. So just call him and he'll do that for you. You know, it's
Terry, that's built in, and it's got a great name. It's called the ex-girlfriend feature.
Yeah, we call it the ex-girlfriend feature. You know, or psycho girlfriend feature, depending on how you want to look at it.
Or boyfriend is the case.
Yeah, but that is a very popular feature, is to actually implement it. And I don't know where well, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out where that one started, calling it the ex-girlfriend feature. But yeah, it's a very popular mode. You know, the first thing, just having a voice menu will defeat virtually all telemarketers. That alone will stop almost all calls from coming in, because they won't traverse through a phone system. And what you can often do is detect that and just set them in some crazy loop somewhere, you know, and, you know, for Joe, press 1, you hit 1, okay, for this press, and you just send them on some wild goose chase, where your friends know you just hit 9 and it goes to you, or, you know, something crazy like that. But there's more than one person who has had to set up ex-girlfriend.
So here's this question. Skype. So people can say Skype. Oh. They can say it's like when do I look at putting something like this in versus using Skype?
Well, no one's going to use Skype because it's not GPL, right? So that alone takes that right out of the equation. But
why is Skype on there? I mean, what about MSN with audio? I mean,
well, no. I mean, right now it's like the biggest question I would have is like if I walk in and I got some friends who are running a small business and they say, well, we're using Skype, and I'm going to say, well, you can get more features.
Well, okay. What if you don't want to support your friends? Let them use Skype. That's what I would do.
I mean, well, it's like if you're going to small business, like typically you'll have like a small business, maybe like half a dozen people in there. They're already using Skype, or someone's using Skype, and they say, hey, let's just use Skype. And I'm going to sit there and say, I want to be able to say, look, Skype's not giving you the full set of features you want to get. Now the question I have is like, what would you tell them?
Sure. And I actually have clients that use Skype. Number one, because one of their clients is eBay who owns Skype, and so they're kind of forced into it, but that's a specific scenario. Number one, you don't have outbound caller ID. So you call people on Skype. If you've never received a call from Skype, you'll know it the first time you get it because the phone number is 000123457. I go, oh, someone on Skype's calling me. Whatever. You know, that's number one. You have no identity to the world when you're calling out with Skype. Number two, the Skype doesn't have the inroad into Asterisk. I'm going to say in a very general scope because there are real kludgy ways to get around that have just come out. But Skype is a peer-to-peer system, not a corporate phone system. So you don't have the IVRs, the call groups, the ring groups. You can do some of the functions in the new versions. You can have some multiple phone numbers and stuff, but it is purely internet-based versus the ability to have telco. It's
It's also proprietary. I mean, it's why companies run their own instant messaging servers versus using AIM for it. Sure, they do it with AIM, but for a company, you like to have the liability of owning your own servers and backend for everything.
It's actually a little more basic than that. Skype is free. They're not making any money. At some point, they're going to start advertising, injecting ads inside your call stream, or they're going to shut down. So what element of control do you want to have over your existence?
How do they justify $4 billion?
They're free. So if cost is your driver, you're not going to beat that argument.
They're not completely free. They do sell like minutes.
Well, minutes are free now.
Well, they do sell some of them. And it's only till the end of the year, but plus they have the incoming DIDs, right?
Yeah.
So that's where they make some money.
How about long distance, say to Canada or Mexico?
With most of the internet telephone service providers, you can pretty much get nationwide calling plans, and even to some, a number of countries.
I'm talking about with Asterisk.
Asterisk doesn't care. Asterisk doesn't care. Now what you can do is you can have a phone line, an ITSP, a satellite, 2 cans and string connected to Asterisk, and you can go in and say, if it's a local call, go out here. If it's a long distance call, go out here. If it's an international call, go out here. If I'm calling Joe, go out over the string over to the can in his house.
Now, if it is a corporate satellite office or something that you're calling a lot of times, you can put another Asterisk box over there, and so you call through the internet. Voice over IP, so that'll save the money. But if you're calling random people, then you've got to get one of the providers at 1.9 cents per minute or something, and they'll probably, if they do it right, their stuff goes to the internet until it's the local, and then it comes out as a local call.
Well, there's a real problem though that Skype is very popular, and it would be nice to have Skype just incoming go through the same.
Sure.
Contact people at Skype to have that feature work.
Well, Skype is very proprietary for a reason. I mean, they've got a huge investment in that, especially now that eBay bought them. They're not going to open it up to the world. However, there are 3 commercial packages out there that allow you to do interfacing from Skype to Asterisk. It requires you to keep a standalone machine up and running at all times to act as a bridge. So it's 1-to-1. For every Skype account you want coming into Asterisk, you have to dedicate 1 Windows machine. So,
Can you use VM? That would be pretty cool.
Don't know. I don't know. Maybe.
Don't they use external cables to connect the audio to loop it back into the machine?
I know one of them does, but there's another one. And 2 weeks ago, it was announced that this Chinese hacking group has actually hacked the complete protocol for Skype and is going to publish it. So, it just means they'll probably change it, you know, as soon as it comes out. But they've got to do something, I would think. But they may not, you know, it's hard to say. You know, Skype's, you know, competition to Skype would include things like the Gizmo project, which is an open source version, peer-to-peer. They've got the same thing, you know, all these weird unlimited calling things and call your friends and all that for free. And yet, they run the SIP protocol the same as these phones do. And not only can I connect from Gizmo to any friend that's on Gizmo, I can also connect it to my Asterisk box and use it as a soft phone at the exact same time. So I think it's going to be competition driven to see where Skype actually goes with it and whether they open it up. Vonage said they would never do it. And then they said they will do it. And then 6 months went by and they said, yeah, we're going to do it. And then a year went by and they said we're going to do it. And now they've just announced we're actually going to do it again, and they still haven't done it. So eventually, someday, we expect that we'll be able to do a trunk to Vonage and port, you know, just use your existing Vonage phone numbers and port it right in. But even though they've promised us for 18 months now, they haven't delivered it yet.
They can't. They have to wait for their SONOS gateways to upgrade before they can release the functionality. And all the carriers have been talking about the Acme 2.0 upgrade now for about 2 years, which will never come.
Yeah. So, someday, maybe.
So what's the coolest things you guys have done with Asterisk so far?
He opens his front door from his cell phone.
Thanks.
No problem. I'm there for you, buddy.
Yeah.
Can I still get a ride home?
There's no security issue there at all.
No, not at all. I mean, you'd have to know the phone number, but that's, you know, that's half the battle. I'm not telling it to you.
Well, that's my duty, predictive dialing and stuff.
That's fine. But it's all gonna have my cell phone. It's gonna
You have
take
to have
a
the
while.
cell phone number and the number.
And you have to call
And
from
you
the
have to
cell
know
phone.
my PIN number, and then on top of that, it does voice recognition. So you have to say open door using.
We just recorded that. Yeah. His door is opening as we speak.
I don't think I haven't heard talk about. I mean, Asterisk allows you, and most of these open source PBXs will allow you to control your caller ID to call out, you know, what your CLI is presented through the ITSP. So, you know, that opens up a pretty wide plethora of options for you and what you want to do.
Is the camera still rolling? Okay. I'm going to say it anyway. Yeah, you can spoof caller ID is what we call it. So in a corporate environment, we want all outbound calls to look like they're coming from the same phone number. So we tell Asterisk, push out this caller ID, and we can do that. And that's great. The companies love that. And instead of having all these different phone numbers and no matter what trunk it goes out, for the most part, we can say what the caller ID is. Now what's really fun about that is you can program your friend's cell phone number as the caller ID, call them, and it goes right into their voicemail system. So by completely bypassing all security. So if you have a cell phone, you might want to put a password on your voicemail. Otherwise, I can get into it just by programming my system as your cell phone number. And it'll usually drop right in. And it works with every provider out there. So that is their security for voicemail, is your caller ID. And since I can spoof it, I've never done that, I'm going to say. No, that's bad.
So my question, so for example, so you set up something like this, you start depending on it for, let's say, office to office between Asterisk servers. Do you have any worries about tiered service coming back to haunt you in a big way?
Oh, sure.
That's why you should be going, you know, making sure that the net stays open by writing to your common creators.
I wrote to mine.
Are you serious?
I gotta let her back, actually.
Well, sure, but I'm just saying, that one of the things I look at is, you know, how much infrastructure can I really
that's the whole
depend on?
that's the whole quality of service that the telecoms keep saying. Hey, we want to guarantee the quality of service. And that's another issue we're also facing is places like the Chinese telecom want to minimize VoIP. You know, going around their toll gate.
The Department of Homeland Security just plugs in and reads the Chinese mail when it feels like.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole, I mean, we could sit here for 2 days just discussing security ramifications and encryption and, you know, why there's actually inherent problems in the way it's designed today and where it's going and secure SIP and, you know, all the stuff that's going to come because it has to come and problems such as net neutrality and all that, but for now it works. You know?
Well, if you're setting up, let's say, a corporate you know, gateway from, let's say, here to like Mexico, I assume you're going to run some sort of VPN between the two.
Probably, in most cases, you know.
Like SSH or...
You're going to do something, you know,
SSL or something.
you know, if you're all on net with one provider, you may have MPLS or who knows what you're going to do. But as far as security, I mean, there's obviously ways around, you know, to make sure that your call is secure. There's ways to ensure bandwidth, or not bandwidth, but the packet priority. You know, that again is almost a discussion in itself of what QoS is and how to set it up and how to maximize it. But you know, your cheap $89 Linksys router today has QoS built into it. You can say, if I plug into that port, have it have higher priority, and wow, your call quality gets better.
Okay, another home use. I wish Claude was over here, because Claude is our TiVo guy. Wouldn't it be kind of cool to kind of dial into your Asterisk machine, say, I want TiVo to record the show tonight?
No, I have to call my wife. I'm not allowed to touch the remote.
But, I mean, seriously, it's like, you know, Claude did some really cool stuff with, you know, what was it, X10 interfaces with TiVo and stuff like that. So here you are, you can sit there and go, I can call now Asterisk if you've got the script set up to...
Oh, he's already done X10 to TiVo?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people who have done X10 out of Asterisk.
You don't even need Asterisk if you know your IP address for your TiVo and it's on a home network.
You're in
business. It's that simple.
Yeah, remember, it's like sometimes you don't have access necessarily to the IP where you have access to your cell phone.
That's true.
You know, so there's many times I'm out, you know.
You're implying your cell phone doesn't have a web browser on it. What's wrong with you?
Well, I didn't spend extra $10.
I can call my TV box right now.
Hey.
If I have it set up.
Well,
Yeah.
We gotta get you to the TV and Asterisk integration.
There are people who have done that. I mean, there's almost no limit to what you can do. Think of, okay, if I can type it, what can I control? Well, look around. I mean, there's no limit to that. You know, if something occurs, can I be notified? Oh, that's great. You know, how can I tie multiple people together? I mean, there's almost no limitation, simply because Asterisk is nothing more than a toolkit. You know.
Now let me ask you a question. Does Asterisk have things it can do off the command line? Suppose I was running a server and wanted to say, you know, if such and such a process goes down, you know, Asterisk to Alex's phone number, give such and such a message.
Oh, yes. The simple
That's
answer
another
is,
API you could use. Asterisk says, well, in that case, you could have a script monitoring the processes, and then you could just toss a file in the directory, and then Asterisk picks up the file and it'll initiate a call out to that location. Or you could do another way, and if you're on a remote machine, you could use a TCP connection to the manager interface in Asterisk, and you could go ahead and send it a packet, and it'll initiate out a call. So it's got ins and outs everywhere.
And the reverse, if you know you call into Asterisk, it can then fire off a Perl script somewhere.
Right,
to
that
go
would be the AGI.
do something.
Right.
So
now I'm curious, why would you want Asterisk actually to call out as opposed to send out a text message through your standard IP?
Well, that's not nearly as cool. I mean, I got a phone system.
I was really sort of lumping the two together in my thinking.
Because normally I just, you know, email it out to the appropriate.
What about if someone's handicapped and they're blind? There you go.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's always a reason for something. You know, maybe it's easier that way, or maybe it's just it dials an extension at the sysadmin's desk and.
Well, most likely you're dialing the security guy who doesn't know how to log into the email anyway.
That's true.
So.
But, you know, anything that you can script, anything that you can code, anything that you can monitor, you know, any way that you are comfortable with programming, there's a way to talk to it and have it talk back. Okay. So it's extremely flexible. As Mitch said, there's multiple APIs, there's multiple interfaces, there's multiple ways of doing the same thing. Right. From as easy as dropping a text file in the call directory and it initiates the call, to actually sending packets directly into Asterisk and saying, do these functions for me. So there's a variety of different ways of doing it.
Now, how many of you guys have a large family at home, or a lot of roommates?
Okay.
See, that's where the voicemail part gets nice. If you had a large family, it's like, okay, everyone's got their own little voicemail box instead of. I'd rather keep erasing my messages.
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem I have teenagers, you know, and
That's the problem.
yeah, and it's a major problem, you know, and if the girl picks up the phone, what are the odds of that message getting to the boy?
Never.
Exactly, you know, but you put a cheap phone in their room, they each have their own extension, their friends call the house, press 1 for Chris, it goes to him. Actually, they have their own line, so it calls them, and those are the only two choices because our phone has a different phone number, so the parent's phone is different. Even though it's all handled by the same system, you know, our phone lines come in and they're handled different. Their phone line comes in, it's handled different. They have their own voicemail accounts. They have their own individual phone numbers now. I mean, you can do some really nice stuff with it. It's not limited to just one input, one output. You can. We have one box actually running 5 completely separate businesses in it. You have no idea that they're all running on the same box. The calls come in, they're handled completely differently, there's different sets of extensions. You would never know that that box handled more than one business, and yet I have one that's got 5 on it, and mine in my office actually runs 3 separate businesses on it. So you can do a lot of cool stuff with a single box to manage either multiple businesses or, like I said, in the home use, you know, parents line, kids line, you know, have them with, you know, ITSP accounts because who cares if their call quality, hey, your call sounds bad, quit downloading BitTorrents, you know, and you know, the call quality comes back, you know. So you can do a lot of interesting things like that and to play around with it. It's kind of fun.
Would I be able to do anything meaningful on a 233 megahertz machine?
You can get it running, absolutely. My first one was a 300, and I mean, I ran my business on a 300 megahertz machine for like 6 months. And you know, for a couple lines, couple calls coming in, it ran.
What's the minimum RAM you need?
Basically, if you can run CentOS, Asterisk will run. So I've seen it run on as little as 128 megs. I don't like that because CentOS will actually bitch if you don't have 384. But you know, I know people who are running 256. I prefer a gig on a corporate machine, but you know, a lot of the machines have 512 to 384, and they'll run fine. I mean, you're not going to stack, you know, 20 concurrent phone calls on that box. Play with it. If the call quality is really bad, you know, get a better box. You know, but you can certainly learn and play and test and develop and try different things and see whether it's worth it or not to get a better box. You know, like I said, we've run businesses on a box that I bought at Fry's for $300. So, you know, and that's a gigahertz machine. It can't be too much to get a used box somewhere. You know, that's a couple hundred megahertz to do something more on if you're really having problems on a slower machine. But if you can run Linux, you can run Asterisk. It's pretty much that simple. It's not a big load on the box at all. It's not having the system there. It's really how many concurrent calls you have is what's going to determine whether a machine can handle it or not.
Is there a reason why you use why you want to use CentOS or versus Debian or Ubuntu? It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
I know you keep saying that.
Well, because I was kind of more referring to the TrixBox, because that's what comes with that. There actually seems to be a little more support for CentOS when it comes to drivers and code. All the developers for FreePBX are all using CentOS, and so there's kind of like this ingrained, you know, pseudo relationship there, but there's plenty of people that are running Red Hat, Debian, Ubuntu, Slackware. What do you run? Windows? No.
CentOS or Fedora Core.
Fedora Core, you know, what's that, R or pound key or RPath?
But I don't know.
You know, I mean, people have put it on all kinds of things. You know, you can install it on a Linksys router. You know, you can tons of little embedded systems that you can put it on. AST Linux is not AST Linux. AST Linux is a distribution that is supposed to run on a compact flash card. You know, I mean, there's just a ton of different ways of making it work. So you're not limited by the OS per se, only in terms of the software drivers for some of the PCI cards. There is no Digium driver for the cards for Ubuntu right now. And I think they're a little lacking on Debian right now. If you're not using those, sky's the limit.
Were you serious about running on a router?
Yes. Oh yeah. In Chicago, there's about I think they're up to about 90 nodes running Linksys WRT54s, and they flash the ROMs with the embedded version of it, and they've tied them all in together into this big mesh. It's pretty crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. There's a version of the DD-WRT firmware that has the program called SIR in it, which is a SIP router that you can do a lot of cool stuff with. So yeah, I mean, you can do it. You're going to lose functionality because you're limited in scope. You're not going to be able to, you know, run 100 voicemail accounts on it because you're just not going to have storage. Yeah. But you will be able to mount a remote drive somewhere and use that as your voicemail storage. Yeah.
What's your book?
It's called Getting Started with TrixBox. It's published by Pact Publishing out of London, and should hit the stores probably in about 45 days. So I'll make a big fuss about it when it comes out.
Well, that